There is a dream on your heart, a life that you're destined to live. But it hasn't happened yet. It can feel like you're falling behind in life, or that you've missed your chance. Well, I'm Brittany Hoops, and I'm here to tell you, together here today, we are finally going to take a stand. We're going to take the reins, collapse timelines, connect to your vision, and tap into the manifestation momentum that makes your dreams inevitable.
Take a step back for the ones who
Welcome back, time travelers, to another episode of Inevitable with Brittany Hoops. I want you to take a moment, make sure that you're subscribed so every episode lands right there in your podcast feed, especially since today is episode part 2. On the video, I'm showing 4. Let's just do 2. It's part 2 of our quantum mechanics series. So if you missed part 1, be sure to go back and listen to that. I mean, this one will make sense. I'll do my best, but you really will have a good foundation if you listen to part 1 first. We have part 2 here today, and then part 3 is going to be coming out next. So in part 1, we laid that groundwork for understanding quantum physics, how it applies to manifestation, and all that, gooey, yummy science stuff, right? It was a crash course in quantum mechanics, quantum physics 101. And now we're going to take that even deeper, okay? So if you remember, quantum physics is the study of subatomic particles, okay? The particles that make up atoms. And atoms make up this chair I'm sitting in, right? They make up matter. So we know that when you zoom into an atom far enough and you look at those subatomic particles, we know that they actually aren't set in stone, which means that all possibilities exist within them at any given time. That's what's pretty cool. We talked about that in part 1. What happens is that an observer, like a physics measuring instrument, or like someone like you or me, an observer has an intention, whether they're conscious of that intention or not, which is sort of key here. And that intention then becomes the blueprint for what possibility that subatomic particle will become. Wow. What is going to harden into fact? I believe Neville Goddard said that. And I really sort of love that visual, our intentions harden these things into matter, into fact. Well, the same can be said of our experience of time. And that's what we're going to dive into here today. Let's just dissect our experience of time. So just like subatomic particles, the present moment is also observer dependent, which means that time in itself isn't absolute. It depends on your perspective of it. Now, we have good old Albert Einstein to thank for this. I'm sure you've heard of him. His theory of relativity. Perhaps you've heard of it. That theory helps us understand that time passes at different rates depending on a few different things, right? Speed and gravity. So, for example, there was this experiment that I found really interesting, and it was done back in the 1970s, right? Where scientists flew atomic clocks around the world on these commercial airplanes. And then what they did is they compared those clocks to clocks that they left back on Earth, on the ground, right? And here's what they discovered. They discovered that the airborne clocks, the clocks that were in the airplanes, were slightly out of sync compared to the ground clocks. Speed and gravity had affected them. Now, let's just put this clearly, right? The difference was nanoseconds, but there was an effect all the same. And so let's just take sort of a moment to let that land. Airplane pun unincluded, unintentional, right? Let's just let that land for a second. Think what that means for us exactly. It means that you do not return from a long flight the exact same age as the people who stayed home. Vacationing keeps you young. Oh, I'm kidding. But seriously, think about that. What? Why aren't we making a bigger deal about this? That's kind of crazy. Same goes for astronauts. They age more slowly than people on Earth. And why is this the case? Well, they're moving extremely fast. They're experiencing a weaker sense of gravity, right? Now, they age milliseconds less than people on Earth, but we've measured this too with atomic clocks as well. And so you're probably like, Brittany, what the heck are you drinking? What are you on? Okay. What does this have to do with you and your manifestations? Well, it's the overall psychological implication of this, okay? Time isn't the same for everyone. Time depends on motion and gravity. There is no one universal now that we're all sharing. And I feel like we actually sort of just came up against this here recently. I feel like we all feel this when we celebrate New Year's Eve, which we did just a couple weeks ago, right? In fact, this New Year's Eve, that day, I was talking to someone who lives in Dubai, and she was like, Happy New Year. And my mind hadn't even really gone to that yet, right? Because I'm in the US, I'm on the central time zone. And so I'm 10 hours behind her. And so I still had this full day before I would celebrate New Year's later that night. And she was like, literally, like, texting me from like a New Year's Eve party, right? And well, I mean, I wasn't going to celebrate this year. I have a 6-month-old. A celebration for me is getting to actually sleep, but she was celebrating just fine. But I would say that it's important for us to remember that the universe does not agree on what moment it is. The present moment that you experience is yours and yours only. And then you can kind of start to think about things like the fact that I'm recording this here right now, in my now, right? In my current now. And who knows what the heck you're doing on, January 17th at 3 or what is it, 9:34 a.m. Central Time. I don't know if you remember, but the you now listening to this, whatever time and day it is in the future. Oh, I forgot to say, it's January 17th, 2026. You could be listening to this years from now, okay? Whatever you are doing now in the future, that's your current now, your current experience, yet we're having this very same conversation. It's not bound by time. All time is conditional, it's contextual, it's relational. And that is super freaking important to your manifestations because it sort of softens time in a way. Physically, motion affects clocks. Psychologically, momentum affects how time feels to you. Now, there's no master clock that you're trying to race here. That doesn't even exist. It doesn't even exist physically. There's not one clock that agrees. So how you perceive time is how it feels to you. I mean, even the idea that time depends on motion is really important to our manifestations. If you're sitting there just sort of doing nothing, twiddling your thumbs, like when you were a kid in the backseat of your parents' car on a long road trip, I'm a 90s kid, so this was pre-iPad, okay? And maybe you had some sort of travel version of Guess Who or some other board game or something. I had that. Or maybe you played license plate bingo with your siblings to try to pass the time. But even though that car was in motion, it was moving. You, the perceiver of time, were stuck and you were bored. And there was very little perceived motion or progress in your life. And so that time just seemed to drag on. And you'd be like, are we there yet? Right? It's kind of like when you feel stuck with your goals. You may be taking action on them, or you may not. You may think that you're taking action on them, but actually, all you're doing is just a lot of thinking about taking that action, not actually physically making progress. And so, if there's little motion or momentum to the progress that you're seeing on that goal, what does time do? Albert Einstein would tell you it seems to drag on. It feels like everyone else is moving super fast, especially all those people on social media that you compare yourself to. And here you are, stuck in molasses, slow motion, going absolutely nowhere. Okay, it can feel that way, right? So, what about the opposite, though? That's what we're actually concerned about. We all know the feeling. It's called a flow state. When you get so immersed into something, you take so much action. There's so much momentum. There's motion. We literally call it flow. I mean, that is like a verb that describes motion, right? And what happens then? Time seems to fly by. Your alarm goes off or someone brings your attention. You're like, oh my God, I didn't realize it was 3 p.m. already. Time flies by when you're having fun. I mean, really, they should change that saying to be like, your perception of time seems to accelerate when you take a lot of action. Not nearly as catchy of a phrase, but perhaps a little bit more accurate. Motion, momentum, when that increases, time feels like it's moving faster too. That's because it's all relative to you. It's the theory of relativity. And so, this time anxiety that we can feel in relation to our manifestations and how long they take to manifest, guess what? It's all made up. It's conditional. It's contextual. It's relational too. Our perception and lived experience of time shifts based on our speed and our motion. What if it feels like your dream is taking too long simply because you aren't moving fast enough towards that goal? You haven't been taking enough action. That's what I often find when I talk to people, Brittany, I thought my business would be further along by now. Oh, really? Well, what have you done? Well, I made a website. Okay, so when do you work on it? Well, I worked on it once this week after my day job. Okay. Well, then I took a 3-month break because insert excuse here. Okay. I mean, no wonder it feels like it's taking long. You aren't in motion. Nothing is happening. You're the kid in the back of the car saying, "Are we there yet?" Not doing anything but wishing and waiting and hoping. And that's gonna make it actually feel like it's taking longer. Isn't that crazy? I know I felt that way during my 4-year stint with infertility. It was the focus on the lack of the manifestation that made it feel so dang long until I got pregnant. And in fact, it was when I decided to detach from that dream, to focus on my business, to focus on having fun. I looked into adopting a puppy, like really just allowing my life to move forward, even if a baby wasn't there yet. It's when I allowed myself to do all that, that's when my perception of time began to speed up. And I was no longer stuck in lack of where is it? It's not here, and that sort of mentality. And then of course, that's when I got pregnant. In fact, I have an episode. Oh man, I wish I could remember the exact. It's something like how I manifested getting pregnant or something. Go back in the catalog of podcast episodes, but I go into detail all about that. And I'll tell you this, the past 6 months since I've given birth to my daughter, those 6 months have been the fastest 6 months of my entire freaking life. I mean, if you would tell me, okay, so it took 4 years to get pregnant. If you would have told me that I'm 1/8 of the way through already of the amount of time it took to get pregnant, I would not believe it. Because those two experiences of time are completely different. Like, you know, nothing. I will stand by this. Nothing will prove to you that time is relative more than becoming a parent. The previous 4 years dragged by so slowly, and the past 6 months, I'm just begging to slow down. And guess what? There's sort of very little chance that you feel the exact same way about these past 6 months because time is personal and unique to the observer. Your brain is actively constructing your experience of time. So let's take Einstein's theory of relativity and let's kind of move it one step further into manifestation land, shall we? Okay. So we know there is no universal now. And if there is no universal now, trying to divide reality into these little slices of past and present and future, these little chunks of space time, it doesn't actually work. This idea is called the block universe, okay? Or you might hear it called eternalism in modern physics. It's the philosophy of time, the idea that the past, the present, and the future all already exist. They're all complete. That's really trippy to think about because we often think like, no, the future's open-ended. And yes and no, and we'll get into that. Time isn't flowing moment by moment. We are. Okay, our consciousnesses or our experience of time is. And here's kind of the example that I like to give. Imagine that that you've been handed this old time record in a record player. Okay. You pick the artist and the album. I don't really care. But this record and all the songs that it contains, this is the block universe. Okay. And that record, it's in your hands. It's already been recorded. Okay. My record would probably be something by Sufjan Stevens. He's my favorite musical artist. Okay. So he's already gone into that recording studio. He's made that album and it's already been created into this record that I'm holding in my hands. All the songs, every note, every chorus, it's all data, it's all information that's contained in the grooves of this record, right? And so when I place my record on that record player, wherever that needle is touching, that is the present moment, okay? It's playing out the music, the experience of my life, okay? What is being played out loud and experiencing, I am listening to in the now. And the needle can only really touch one groove on one record at a time. So as soon as I move on to the next song, those earlier grooves, they still exist, right? They're part of the record. It's just the past. We've already listened to those. And the later grooves, they already exist too on that record, okay? They're just the future. We're going to be listening to those songs soon. Time is the needle that is moving. It is not the music that's being created. Okay, I'm going to say that again to really let it land. Time is the needle that is moving, not the music that's being created. You don't create the song as it's being played. I mean, unless you're like really bad at karaoke or something. You sing along to the wrong tune, you might be creating some. But generally, the song's already created. You don't create the song as it's being played, you reveal it. You sing to it. You sing with it. And we only ever really feel uncertain about our future because we don't have access to the whole record before we play it. Okay? No one leaked these songs online. But the universe knows this record by heart because the universe is the recording artist, okay? It knows what the next song on that album is and, you know, and it exists as a potentiality for you to experience too. So even though the future already exists, it exists as infinite possibilities. Remember, we talked about that, and what was that in the part 1, right? It exists as infinite possibilities until it is observed, or in this case, listened to. Okay? And so this is called the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, if you're interested. I personally love this record analogy because it also explains how we can get stuck in our own past. So that record and that record player, it exists in your subconscious mind. And sometimes when we get stuck on a past event or a trauma, or we're rehashing a conversation that really made us mad, or we get stuck in regret on how we handled something, and we just sort of replay that moment again and again and again in our minds, it's like we're playing the same past song or album on our record players. The needle is in the present moment always, but what's being played are songs we've already listened to, right? It's playing the past, but it's playing it in our present moment. And that matters a ton because we could be essentially wasting our present moment reliving the past. Because if you're reliving the past, you're not actually where you are. You're not moving forward. And that's why you feel like you're stuck. Now, I see this a lot with people who have PTSD, right? Their brains want to replay those old past records in their present moment again and again. And this becomes a problem because it starts negatively impacting their lives right now. And so our job becomes, how can we retrain the brain to listen to a different song, to progress with that record and through that album? Now, the key thing to remember here is that time doesn't pass. We pass through time. Another way to look at it is sort of like riding a roller coaster, right? The roller coaster, it's built. The tracks have been laid. That's time. Past, present, future, all tracks that exist for this coaster. That in itself, the fact that it exists, is neither here nor there. It isn't that thrilling, right? What makes a roller coaster thrilling is when you actually ride it, right? The change, the motion, the anticipation of going up, 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 and then dropping down, the lack of gravity, right? The speed, the gravity, the motion. The memory of that upside down part that nearly made you hurl, right? But you survived it. The experience of moving through those tracks of that roller coaster of time. Only this roller coaster, just imagine every time you come to some sort of junction in the track, there are infinite tracks that you could continue down. And whichever track you give your attention to, the one that you observe is going to be the one that you ride next. Okay. It's a very complex mini worlds roller coaster. Lots of track had to be laid down on that coaster for it to exist. And this matters so much because it reminds us that the only thing that really matters all that much about time is our experience of it. Abraham Hicks always gives kind of this funny example. No one plans a vacation and says, oh, I just can't wait until this is over so I can get home, right? Let's just get this over with so I can get home. If you're going to a place that you want to go to, right? If that were the case, you would just stay home. No one's forcing you to go luxuriate and enjoy yourself, right? It's the same with a roller coaster. Don't get on that coaster if you don't want the experience of it. Its whole purpose is experience. And that's the same with time. And it's the same with manifestation. You would not want to jump from manifestation to manifestation constantly with no time in between. That would remove the experience of it. And what you're wanting is the experience of it. Okay? Sometimes you only realize this later. I will even say those whole 4 years that I was wishing, wanting, praying for a baby. Most of that time I cataloged here on this show, at least a good portion of it. I wouldn't wish that time away for nothing. And I will tell you, if you've been listening to this show for a long time, especially, I have some episode that's called like Manifestation Faith Crisis. If the Brittany then could listen to this episode now, she'd be like, what the heck? That I wouldn't wish away that time. That was not the way I felt like in the moment. But looking back on it, those were amazing years. I got to do the TV show Big Brother. I went on fantastic vacations. I ate at wonderful restaurants. I relaxed. I slept in. I had romantic date nights with my husband. I'd love to go on a date right now. That would be really nice, but I can't. I gave birth to my manifestation 6 months ago. Don't get me wrong. I love being a mother. Having a baby was and is still a huge dream of mine, right? But you can often realize that the time that you are so desperately wanting to fast forward through is the exact time you'll cherish once you receive your manifestation. Isn't that crazy? You want to experience time. Time is made to be experienced by you, the observer. So let's recap. Time, just like those subatomic particles, is observer dependent. That's right, it's dependent on you. Your experience shapes it. Your perspective, your motion, your momentum. That's why manifestation momentum is so dang important. That's why the sole purpose of this podcast is to get you moving and grooving on those manifestations. We know that a dream in motion is a manifested one. Okay? Remember, there's no master timeline or clock, despite what your mother might say. Your time, your timeline is personal. It's unique to you in all ways. You are right on time. But if you want to change how time feels, just sort of play with the dial of your momentum. Find your flow. Your manifestation isn't usually stalling, but you are. And by you, I mean your action, right? So get in motion because there is a dream out there that is fully fleshed and it is just waiting very patiently for you. The future is already done, and it's waiting for you to get your butt in gear so that you can move through it. Past, present, future, all exist at once. It's about time that you reveal it. So focus on where you want your little roller coaster car to go and ride right on into the future of your design. And if you sort of had that light bulb moment at any point during this episode, or even part 1, 2, be sure to share this with a friend. What is better than gifting some manifestation momentum to someone who has big dreams just like you? That's the best gift. I love when people give me that. There's nothing that is more important than the precious resource that we all have here during our blip of time here on Earth. And it's our life. It's our time. So let's go make the most of it. And I'll catch you in part 3, which is where the quantum leaping will happen over in the next episode.
I don't know.